What if the life you're living isn't really yours? What if your goals, your regrets, even your guilt, were borrowed from someone else's script? There was once a man who chased pleasure like it was his mission, only to find himself drowning in a silence that no applause could fill. His name was Augustine, and though you might know him as a saint, what made him truly unforgettable wasn't his halo, it was his fall. Augustine wasn't born virtuous. He was brilliant, ambitious, seductive, a man of philosophy who could outthink anyone, but couldn't outfeel his own emptiness. He had everything the world tells you is greatness, yet confessed he felt like a stranger to himself. His story isn't about religion. It's about the raw, painful process of becoming real. And maybe that's why it hits so hard, because it's not just his story. It's yours. If you've ever felt like your soul was sleepwalking through success, or that your inner genius is trapped behind layers of masks and noise, you're not alone. Augustine lived that war. And in this video, you're about to walk through every step of that transformation. But I warn you, once you hear what he discovered, you won't see yourself the same way again. In his early days, Augustine was a man caught in the whirlwind of desire, chasing beauty, chasing women, chasing applause. He tasted every flavor of pleasure the world could offer, yet the more he indulged, the more he felt that strange hollowness inside. It's the same paradox many face today. Freedom without direction quickly morphs into a prison. One might have the courage to explore the world, but without virtue, it's like rowing without a compass. He seemed to have it all, and yet nothing ever felt like enough. That's the trap, isn't it? You finally get what you thought you wanted, only to find it lacks the genius you hoped would satisfy your soul. A new relationship, a promotion, a bigger apartment, it feels like greatness for a moment, but quickly fades into background noise. Augustine's story mirrors the modern soul scrolling endlessly for significance. What if the things that sparkle on the outside are just distractions from what's rusting on the inside? Pleasure alone, without sensibility, often ends in silent despair. He started sensing a gap, not just between him and the world, but between who he was and who he pretended to be. The philosopher in him was awakening, poking holes in the mask he wore to please others. And that quiet voice inside, the one he kept silencing with parties and praise, was beginning to grow louder. That tension, the brilliance of potential clashing with the burden of ego, was setting the stage for something far deeper. But the soul doesn't scream, it whispers, until the day it can't stay silent anymore. There's a moment when the weight of wasted time hits you like a quiet avalanche. Augustine, standing at the edge of all his past choices, didn't just reflect, he mourned. "Too late have I loved you," wasn't a poetic lament. It was a scream from the soul, realizing how long he had traded greatness for illusions. That cry, so raw, so honest, still echoes in those who feel they've spent years running in the wrong direction. Many feel this same sting in midlife, or even earlier, when they pause and ask, "What have I really built?" We chase careers, validation, reputation, only to find we've neglected the parts of us that were truly virtuous. That ache in the chest. It's not burnout, it's the soul begging for deeper meaning. Augustine's grief wasn't just about time lost. It was about not knowing himself while pretending to be everything for everyone. But pain has a way of waking up what comfort puts to sleep. His regret, while heavy, was also a beginning, a door cracked open toward sensibility, toward something sacred he couldn't name yet. Sometimes guilt is not a chain, but a compass. What if that lump in your throat is greatness trying to rise? What if the tears are your heart finally remembering what it always knew? Transformation doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it slips in like a quiet storm. For Augustine, it wasn't just a shift in belief. It was a collapse of a false self he'd carefully built. The moment his heart surrendered, it wasn't weakness. It was the bravest act of genius. To finally stop clinging to what never made him whole. That's what real courage looks like, letting go of who you thought you had to be. Picture it, a man who once sought applause now on his knees, not begging for power but peace. Not asking for more, but finally whispering, "Enough." There's a kind of virtue in that moment, the kind that can't be taught in books or sermons. It's the kind that comes when the soul breaks free from its own ego. And in that freedom, a different kind of greatness begins to rise, quiet, grounded, untouchable. And yet, this surrender didn't erase the struggle, it just shifted the battlefield inward. He wasn't becoming a saint overnight, he was becoming real. And isn't that what most of us crave? To stop performing and just be authentic, raw human. But what comes next, after the fall of the mask, is a different war entirely, one that doesn't end with a single moment of grace. Even after his conversion, Augustine didn't walk into instant serenity, far from it. The battlefield simply moved inside. He still wrestled with pride, with longing, with the haunting echoes of his past. That's the part no one talks about. How greatness isn't the absence of struggle, but the ability to face it daily, with sensibility and resolve. The ego doesn't go quietly. It claws, it whispers, it seduces. This war between flesh and spirit isn't exclusive to saints or philosophers. It's a daily reality for anyone trying to live with virtue. Ever tried meditating, and suddenly your mind is planning a revenge speech from 3 years ago? Yeah, that. Or setting an intention to be more present, only to scroll through your phone for 2 hours. These moments aren't failures. They're reminders that courage isn't about never falling. It's about standing up again and again. Augustine began to understand that the masks he wore, pride, control, reputation, weren't armor, they were chains. The path to redemption wasn't through domination of the self, but surrendering its illusions. And that realization, that slow, humbling awakening, opened the door to a deeper insight. If the war never truly ends, maybe the secret isn't in winning, but in how you choose to fight. The past? It's memory. The future? It's imagination. All we really have is the present moment, and yet so few of us know how to live in it. Augustine's philosophy teaches us that time isn't just something we count. It's something we carry. Every second becomes sacred when seen through the lens of virtue. Try it. Spend 10 minutes a day doing nothing but noticing the moment. No scrolling. Just being. And here's where it gets wild. When you start living in time rather than against it, something unlocks. You begin to notice the divine in the mundane. You realize that courage isn't about chasing the extraordinary, but embracing the eternal hidden in the ordinary. And in that realization, another door opens, one not into the future, but deeper into yourself. Augustine saw the world through 2 lenses, 2 cities, really. One built on vanity, pride, and fleeting power. The other, rooted in humility, virtue, and eternal sensibility. And every day, whether we realize it or not, we pledge allegiance to one of them. Not with our words, but with our choices. That's the real battlefield, not out there, but right here, in the quiet space between stimulus and response. So now that you've walked through Augustine's journey, from the illusion of pleasure to the truth within, what about you? What have you been chasing that no longer feeds your soul? What masks have you worn for so long, you've forgotten what your real face even looks like? It takes courage to stop running, and even more to turn inward and ask, what kind of life am I really building? If anything in Augustine's story hit close to home, don't just feel inspired, act. Reflect. Journal. Cut the noise. Start saying no to what steals your genius, and yes to what sharpens your virtue. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to become whole. So tell me, what's one truth you've been ignoring that it's time to face? If this video stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and join a growing community of people who are done living on autopilot. Together, let's keep diving deeper into the minds and souls that shape the world, because maybe, just maybe, they'll help us reshape our own.